Hello and welcome to North Country Matters. Today we're going to be talking about the Green Living Fair, which is coming up at the end of the month. My name is Donna Seymour. I'm a member of the St. Lawrence County League of Women Voters, one of the civic partners for our show. And our two guests today are Ann Heidenreich, who is the coordinator of the Green Energy Fair, and Dave Bradford. And Dave is on the committee, and you've been working with Canton Town and, Potsdam Town and Village to do the Climate Smart Community Program with them. So you've got a lot of information for us too about this whole thing as we start to figure out how to live more sustainably in the North Country. So I'm glad to have you both with us. The fair is coming up on the 20th, and Earth Day is the 22nd. So the timing is perfect, isn't it, for all of these issues? So give us an idea, Ann, about what the basics of the fair are. What is your mission and some of the details?
Okay, we are both, David and myself, and the municipalities of Canton and Potsdam. I have our Energy Smart communities. They've taken a whole list of commitments to reducing greenhouse gas emissions and adapting to climate change. So this fair is about energy, food, and climate. It's about what people can do to help people to understand, to show actions they can take to reduce their emissions and to develop a more resilient economy, to adapt to climate change. And the good thing is, climate change is a crisis, it's a serious issue, but the good thing is that all of these steps that we take will help us to save money, to build our economy, to create jobs. We know now that renewable energy is cheaper than fossil fuels, and it creates a lot more jobs. And so there are all kinds of, it's a bad problem, but a good solution.
Well, what you're really talking about is how people live, and the fact that they can live smarter, they can live more efficiently, and they can also help the environment and the climate and the earth at the same time. It's win-win-win, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about the basics of the fair in terms of when it's going to be, where it's going to be, how do people access the fair? Tell us a little bit about the logistics.
Okay, the fair is on April 20th. It's Easter Saturday at SUNY Canton in the big new beautiful field house, which they have generously donated for the use of the fair. It will start at 10 o'clock, go to 4 o'clock, and we hope that people will be there.
And there's good parking there, and it's all handicapped accessible, and there's lots of facilities there, so you can have a big crowd. Yeah. It's a huge space.
We have plenty of space, but we have now quite a few vendors and organizations. We'll have a lot of food and energy vendors, our local companies that are selling things that we need to help reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and to become more resilient locally. There'll be a number of farmers, local farmers there. And we'll have activities for kids and music and food. And
you can come and spend the whole day, have a great time, learn a lot, and meet a lot of folks who are interested in the same kind of things that you're interested in, right?
Yeah, and there'll be, for example, we're going to have some electric vehicles there too. We know a lot of people are very interested in these technologies that have been future technologies, but they're here now.
Right.
Before we get too far away from logistics, where are we at with the transportation to the fair? For instance, one of our our St. Lawrence County Mass Transit is going to be there.
Right.
You may have seen in the news, they had a good report, significant increase in ridership from 2 years ago to this last year's report. And so they'll be there to be able to fill people in on where that's going, how they plan to increase ridership on mass transit even more. We were trying to get their help in, again, making it so everybody didn't have to drive to SUNY Canton. Where are we at on that, Ann?
Well, we've talked about it with Larry Legault, and I think
so it's like
we need to tell them what we need. We haven't got that all set.
So the message
set up yet.
today would be keep your ears open,
Right.
and maybe they'll have that option for you.
Yeah.
Right, and you know, you raise an interesting point, Ann, about electric vehicles and those kinds of things, because that's very timely. More than, that particular electric vehicle sales in the US grew by more than 80% in the last year alone, and they're already cheaper to drive than gas guzzlers. So really, it's going to be a case of putting the infrastructure in place for charging stations, and we're seeing locally that some of the colleges are moving ahead on that.
Yeah,
So there's a lot of progress, even in a rural area like ours.
So are the municipalities.
Right.
We will be installing charging stations in Canton, and I believe Potsdam is already also.
Well, they're both, again, and again, this is from the municipal level. They're looking at ways, and this was talking with National Grid. We have actually already a number of what are called level 2 chargers. Think about 25 miles an hour in terms of charging an electric vehicle battery. The DC fast chargers are getting closer to 85 to 100 miles an hour charging rate. And that's what the discussions are. If we can get a few of those in the area, then you can start having serious conversations with anyone that has a fleet of vehicles where they have a known number of miles per day, and then you can make the case that not only is this good for the environment, this is going to save you money. Electric
Right.
vehicles have lower maintenance, et cetera, and if you know you could, 200 miles, and you have a 250 mile vehicle, range vehicle, you don't need to get a hybrid that has a gas backup.
Right.
You know you can use electric all the time.
And the truth is that most of us drive very short distances
Yeah.
even during the week. We don't make trips to Syracuse or Burlington every day, so a lot of times those shorter range vehicles are going to be perfect for 90% of the driving that we do. So that's good. So let's talk a little bit about some of the exhibits that people are going to find at the fair. We talked a little bit about the electric vehicle demonstrations, but what are some of the other kinds of energy companies that are going to be there?
There'll be energy efficiency companies that can do, help with insulation and air sealing and just reducing the amount of heating and electricity you need in your house. The Copley's Hardware, for example, will be there, and they sell a lot of LED lights and things, thermostats and so on, that can, weather stripping, the kinds of things you can use to make your house use less electricity. So efficiency is a big part of the puzzle that we need, the pieces we need. There will be renewable energy vendors there, solar PV vendors, hydro. We now have the possibility of buying small-scale hydro. Consumer, or customer, or household can buy now directly from an electric producer. We have a company there that does those kinds of transactions, and we'll be able to. That'll be really interesting. It's brand new, but it will be fun for us. It's really going to contribute to local development.
Right.
This kind of things we can now buy directly from our renewable producers, and the regulations have changed enough to make a lot of these things possible now. So that's exciting.
So financially, they become something that the average household could at least think about in terms of investing in.
Absolutely.
You talk a little bit about energy efficiency, and that's of course the cheapest energy there is the energy you never use. And in St. Lawrence County, so much of our housing stock is older that it takes a lot to bring these buildings up to modern standards. My house is almost 200 years old, and it's been a 40-year process to get it to be efficient, but we finally got there. But it's not something you do overnight. It's not something you do without giving a lot of thought to, and the new technologies make it so much more available to folks to do. It isn't as backbreaking as it used to be to tear walls apart and insulate.
And there will be contractors there who do that sort of work and are very happy to talk to people. We'll be happy to talk to people about that. The other thing, there will be farmers there will be food vendors there, because local food, eating local food is really an important part of preparing for a future with a different climate.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because over the years, there have been many energy fairs that have been held up here, but food has been kind of the missing link in that. And this is nice because you're adding in this piece that is so important, especially in the North Country where a lot of communities simply don't have access to much in the way of grocery stores. They're, your local gas station may be the closest place to go for some kinds of groceries, and if you're limited in your transportation choices, getting to a big grocery store is a problem.
Yeah, well, we have a growing food, I would call it a food movement of farmers and food vendors and farmers markets that are somehow working to fill that gap.
That gap, right.
Yeah, Garden Share will be there.
Right.
They're an organization that has done a lot of work
They
towards
have.
food security as availability.
One thing I wanted to mention to folks, that, I know you said you got some solar power folks that are gonna be coming to that. It's really important to know that the federal tax credit, which is currently 30% on the cost of a photovoltaic system, is only going to last through the end of this year. And starting in 2020, it's reduced to 26% of your system cost. And the NYSERDA rebate is going to be dropping from 35 cents to 20 cents a watt. So this is really, the next few months are the last opportunity you have to take advantage of the best of the solar rebates. And of course, New York State always has, they still have their 25% solar rebate. When we went solar about 4.5 years ago, that really reduced the cost of the system that we bought. And because of the way our tax credits went, we were able to get it back almost immediately, which I don't think with the new tax laws is what people are finding, unfortunately. But
So if I could just interject there,
Sure.
too, one of the renewable energies that we have a lot of here is wood energy. And we will have, Mark Seymour will be there, he builds the masonry stove.
Radiant Heart.
Radiant Heart.
Right.
And wood pellets are also, pellet stoves are also a good source of energy, and NYSERDA has a very significant incentive.
Oh, that's
rebate.
good to know.
And hopefully, we will have somebody there with all the information about these types of federal and state tax incentives
Right,
for
so-
buying renewables.
So people can take advantage of that. One thing that I was reading about is that there's going to be a huge opportunity for education at this. You've got a checklist that people can really
Yeah.
take and go home with at the end of the of the living fair, and concrete things they can do at home to start making a difference.
We have a list.
You have a list.
We have
Well,
a list
good.
of 14, everybody will get a checklist.
Right.
And the checklist will give you an action. You can check whether you've already done it or commit to doing it. And then you will be referred on the list to those vendors. We're gonna try to map this to those vendors and organizations that can give you information on how to do that.
So people can come in with an idea about what they need and use your checklist and the map to really hone in on those folks they should be talking to.
Yeah. So, and those are things like switch to renewable energy, reduce your food waste, and we have some really good activities going on. And there will be more on how people can reduce their food waste and what to do with leftover food. We should not be throwing it away.
Actually, that's a good, one thing, it's very easy to get everybody think energy. And our 4 municipalities, both the town and villages of both Potsdam and Canton, have all passed this climate smart community resolution, which is the easy part. And now it's to now find out things appropriate for your community you can do to build resiliency for your community. And it's beyond just energy. So we're now talking about the local food movement, and then to close the circle, composting. In the near future, it is actually organic things that can be composted are going to be outlawed to go into our landfills. And they are a source of greenhouse gases.
In fact, the third biggest thing that we can do, most important thing that we can do globally to combat climate change, to reduce greenhouse emissions, is to reduce our food waste.
Right.
It's that significant. 40% of the food that is grown in this country is wasted. And a lot of that goes to just methane, and
Right.
which is a very potent greenhouse gas.
And New York State has also just passed a plastic bag recycling law, which basically is going to put they're going to outlaw them a year from now, next March. And so, you know, the state is also showing some leadership on many of these issues. We're lucky to be living here because lots of states are not as forward-looking as New York has been on some of these issues. And so, you know, we're well-placed not only in the North Country because of local efforts, but also because of leadership at the state for many of these issues in terms of renewable energy and setting climate-smart goals. So that's good.
The Green Living Fair will be a place where people can come to learn also what's going on in our communities. We have the schools, school kids, Cornell Cooperative Extension, the municipalities will all have tables showcasing what they're doing. I know from Canton Sustainability Committee, we will have a table, and there's quite a bit going on in Canton. I mean, we have now a pilot food waste collection plan. We have the big solar system, which is going in, which will provide all the electricity for the municipality, or 90% of the electricity that the municipality uses, we will be generating ourselves with a solar field.
The four colleges have really been leading the charge on many of these sustainable issues, and later this week they're having their Sustainability Day, which is hosted at Potsdam, SUNY Potsdam this year. But this is something that they are showing a lot of academic leadership on, all of the four colleges, aren't they?
Yeah, the colleges and the schools.
Right.
The Canton School has teamed up with Clarkson and with Cornell Cooperative Extension, and their food waste is now being collected, taken to, and with collaboration of the Clarkson students, it goes to Cornell Cooperative Extension to a digester, which creates methane, which is used
as natural gas, not as waste into the air, right? Yeah.
No, for heating, and it creates a great slurry for fertilizer. So, so this is really a very good way to also use food waste, because it produces it. It is a very good feed for a biogas digester, and then the products are very valuable.
As David talks about closing those loops,
Yeah.
so that we don't end up with losing good nutrients because they aren't available to plow back into the land. So climate change is the media story that we see over and over again every day, and a lot of that news can be very overwhelming. It can make people feel like, oh, I don't know what to do. It's more than just not saying I won't buy a plastic straw. I mean, people can feel very helpless in the face of all the negativity. But events like the Green Energy Fair are really designed to empower people. What are your expectations for the outcome of the fair? What do you think people are going to come away with that is going to make a positive difference in their lives and in the lives of all of us up here?
Well, I think they're going to come away with some really concrete commitments, hopefully. I mean, to be able to do things, to take measures. A lot of what people are doing now naturally is starting to contribute, because this is the way that we're moving. But I think every little bit will help. And so I think people will come away with some really concrete things that they're going to do. I think they'll also have a lot of fun. And see what's happening in their community, and feel more a part of this movement that's going on. I know that when people do commit at local levels to reducing emissions and take these actions, that it does create jobs, that it does stimulate the local economy. And it saves you money. I mean, on a personal, individual level, it saves money. And so all of these things I expect will come out of this Green Living Fair, which is part of a bigger effort on the part of our communities.
Yeah, if I could add to that, so I'm hoping, I think it's going to be a great event, because there's going to be an opportunity people could take some very specific direct action. They could, for instance, just recently, the regulatory barriers that between a local hydro producers and selling directly to customers have been brought down. So hydro can take advantage of some of the same regulatory benefit or relief that solar has already enjoyed. So you have a, get hooked up with a local producer of food. But then on the bigger picture, you find out what are the barriers to more mass transit in the North Country. And it's like, well, that route system still isn't convenient for me. Hopefully, there are some things that us as individuals, we're not going to be able to impact. And now this is where we need to have some kind of movement of people, like-minded people, then getting our public officials to take bigger steps that will have even bigger impacts. But they, again, will impact and improve our quality of life in the North Country if we have a mass transit system.
Right.
It's just one example.
Yeah, that's very true. And transportation has always been one of the big barriers up here, especially if you live away from any the 5 big communities. You have to have a car to get somewhere without some kind of a mass transit system. So developing that and making it feasible is going to be a big challenge, but it's also going to have great results, as you say. So I want to talk to you, David. Canton has been leading the way on a lot of these issues because of the Sustainability Committee and the way that the town and the village have worked together for years now on trying to address some of these issues. Potsdam is starting that process. The last couple of years, we've seen a lot of cooperation, working on their comprehensive plans, becoming energy smart communities. You've been very involved in the efforts here in Potsdam, both in the town and the village side. When people from other communities who are looking to start this work kind of take a look at what Canton or Potsdam are doing, will the Green Living Fair be a good place for them to come and get ideas about how to get started in their home communities?
Yes, our municipalities will be represented.
Right.
Might be the 2 of us, but so I'm a volunteer on the greenhouse gas inventory for both the town and the village. In Potsdam, we're playing catch up a little bit to Canton. Thank you to some Clarkson students that have jumped in to do some of the volunteer work. So, for instance, again, energy. You have to figure out where you're at to start with, and that's what a greenhouse gas inventory is all about. In Canton, or in Potsdam, we've broken it down into 3 volunteer committees. Beyond greenhouse gas inventory, we have community development, and the idea that building, and then resiliency. And clearly you can see how these things are going to overlap. And some specifics that are already in the works is as you do what you would be doing anyway. For instance, downtown revitalization is an ever ongoing process of grant writing, etc. And now you just make sure that those plans have elements consistent with climate smart communities, consistent with resiliency, with an eye to future weather events like we had the flood here in Potsdam. We're very aware that those severe rainfall is more likely now, and so the village is getting ready for the next one in terms of the crosstown canal, and then working in smart features into our downtown revitalization. LED streetlights is the simplest thing that just, you're doing your upgrade of your downtown, then you should put in an eye to the energy efficiencies that you need to build in at the same time.
The Climate Smart Communities is a program of the Department of Environmental Conservation, and it's a really good program. It's one of the best. I've worked in national, international development for many years, and it's one of the best programs that I have come across. The most supportive, with just tons of information and grants, good grants to help us. And they will be a representative from the DEC will be there.
10 to 2 at least.
Okay.
So maybe not past. So if those communities wanted to talk to DEC directly,
that would be the time
get there
frame.
before 2.
Yeah.
And, you say, they also start out with checklists, really, don't they, in terms of, as you talk about assessing your community, and then it's a case of, we can do this, we can do this, we can do that, and you
Exactly.
sort of prioritize your actions and you go from there. And then at some point, you hit that magic point where you become an energy smart community, but you don't stop, you just keep going. So it takes a while to get to that first critical mass point, doesn't it? But once you get there, each event, that each check mark is that much more momentum to keep going with the list.
It makes it's so very clear, the steps you can take. So that makes it does. Now the steps aren't easy. Don't get me
Right.
wrong. I mean, you have to do something, but it's that all the information and support you need to do it
Is there.
is there, and that's really.
So it's not like every community has to go out and reinvent the wheel here. The wheels are all out there, it's just a case of hitching your community to them, right?
Yeah.
So that's good.
So there is that support, and I haven't got a commitment yet. We don't know for sure if NYSERDA is gonna be there, but the vendors who do, for instance, the solar vendors who sell solar systems know all there is to know about the incentives. So if NYSERDA doesn't get there, then at least we will have, that information will be available.
So one of the things that, this is really a family event. This isn't just something for mom and dad, is it? It's the whole family can come and enjoy this day. So talk a little bit about what the younger folks are going to be able to take advantage of.
Well, I'm in here, Potsdam gets to make the case for themselves here, both North Country Children's Museum, again, they run their place on pretty much of a shoestring budget, but we've got one of their, what they call pop-up activities. They're going to have design your own windmill blade activity for kids. Our own, here in the basement of the Potsdam Public Library, we've started a seed library. So again, showing, thinking about resiliency in our local, what can you do? We'll be able to, the library will be able to promote that new aspect of what a library can offer beyond just the educational component. Trying to get Canton's library to commit to, they started to lend out garden implements. So again, we have an interesting story that they can tell. Again, little things that we can all participate in, and then who's out there trying to help you achieve these things.
Cornell Cooperative Extension will also have a lot of activities for kids.
Good.
They have a bicycle, I think, that you can ride and generate electricity.
Oh, that'll be fun. So power a light bulb or something?
I think it powers a blender that makes smoothies.
Oh, that's right.
Well,
Yeah, we're gonna have smoothies.
that goes back to your food part of that whole day, doesn't it? So everything is it's like a whole bunch of gears that are all meshing together, and they're all part of a big program, aren't they? So that's great. So as we start to close out the show, if either one of you want to give your final thoughts on the Green Living Fair, and why folks should plan to spend a Saturday afternoon in Canton, because spring is sort of here, but we'll have to hope, I guess, that it's one of those cool days that people still want to be inside.
Well, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be a great place to connect with people in our community that are doing this. I do think we all have a responsibility. We are changing the climate, and we need to do something about it. And the good thing is that we can do something. We have the power to do something, and this fair is really we're doing it to share the good news that you can do something and you can save money and create jobs, and
People can be part of the solution.
And people can really be part of this, exactly. And it will be, I think it'll be a lot of fun.
It sounds like it. Sounds like you planned for an excellent day. David, any thoughts?
Well, I think the breadth of topics, student I think some high school, but then college posters, you know, just what are the young people, and we see a lot of leadership now coming from young people. You can sort of see where they're at. And like I said, there's going to be an opportunity for someone just to learn at the basic level. They're ready to jump 2 feet in on some particular action, find out what your municipalities are already doing. I think there's something for everybody kind of thing, so which is going to be great. And then when the people, you know, some volunteers step up for live music, I mean, what more can we add?
No, that sounds like you've got it covered. Thank you both for coming in. This sounds like a really terrific event, and it sounds like the kind of day that someone's going to come away from and say, wow, they're going to be, their head is going to be packed with ideas, and they're going to have had a great time talking with like-minded folks. So thank you for your efforts to put that together, and we'll hope for the perfect weather for an indoor event.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Well, thank you. These conversations are a production of North Country Matters, which are filmed here in the Fred W. Cleveland Computer Center of the Potsdam Public Library. These shows are a civic collaboration between the League of Women Voters of St. Lawrence County and the Potsdam Public Library. Until next time, remember, our North Country Matters. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Donna.
I'm really